I'm not a particularly ambitious person. I just float through life. People keep saying it's your 5-year plan. I'm like, but hopefully to be alive, Same as my 5-minute plan, get to another 5 minutes. I did the Scotch God as well, played Santa in that. So no, I'm not really very ambitious like that. I did the festival last year, but I set fire to the house when I was a boy, and it's left me with a delicate throat. If I talk too much, it starts to get sore. What happened was, I'd been obviously drinking, came home in the classic Glaswegian, I'll just put something on the frying pan, I'll be fine. I don't know when I woke up, but you couldn't see the house. It was completely full with smoke. I opened the windows, took the thing. I suspect it might have been steak at some point, but it was carbon. I took it off, opened the windows, opened the door, went out, let the smoke disappear, and then just went back to my bed. I woke up in the morning, I couldn't breathe, ended up in the hospital. Ever since then, if I talk too long, it just starts to hurt. So going to the Fringe last year was too much, but by the end of that, I virtually couldn't talk, and that was only 8 days, 2 shows a day. Even during this conversation, start to get a wee tickle at the back of the throat, and I've had all sorts of investigations, and they say there's nothing there.
Hello, Graham Mackie, how you doing, man?
I'm good, how are you?
Aye, doing well, bro. I appreciate you coming in, obviously.
No problem.
Scottish comedy legend, I would say, heavyweight on the scene. 20 odd years, I think you've been performing for now.
Aye.
And then out with that, you're obviously a Santa impressionist, or whatever you call them.
Aye, I'm the real Santa. There was the time I got picked to do the Limmy show. There was a comic was in the BBC comedy unit, and he heard a couple of people saying, "Oh, we need to get a Santa for the Limmy show," and he butted in and says, "I'll get you the real Santa." And I'm like, "What do you mean the real Santa?" So he showed them a picture of me, and they were like, "Oh, brilliant, just get him in." So there's no audition or anything like that. I turned up, and have you seen the Limmy show version of it?
I've no, mate, actually, no.
Well, it's the typical Limmy twist on things. Like, I come down the chimney in the middle of a party, and Limmy's like, What's this? What are you here for? I said, "I'm here for the Waynes." "What? You're here for the Waynes?" And Limmy kills me and puts me in a bath of acid. So sometimes Santa can get himself a bit of bother. Other times it's just nice being nice Santa.
I was going to actually ask you, like, you ever get any women fantasising about sleeping with Santa? Is it you had a few requests?
I get a couple of drunk women a lift home after a gig. Now, there must have been Santa references in it, and one of them was in the front of the car, and she wouldn't keep her hands off me while I was driving, trying to give me her phone number and trying to get me to go back to her house and all that kind of stuff, and there other places to be. So I never get bothered, but she was fantasising like mad. She was slebbered like a poacher's dog because she was in the same motor as what she thought was Santa.
She was wanting Santa empty sack?
Absolutely, more than once a year.
Aye. Is that the only time? Because I would have thought that would have been like a hint for some folk.
No, I think that's the only time that it's actually got as far as that. I mean, there's people that are always saying, "Oh, can I sit in your knee, Santa?" and all that kind of stuff, and see what pops up. And 20 years ago, something might have popped up, but no, it's hardly raising a gallop. But people talk about it. But it's usually from a distance. They don't really get that close. It's just part of their Santa fantasy.
And I was told you earlier, I listened to the other podcast you did, so you do the whole Santa thing at Christmas, like you go in and volunteer at places or get paid and all that?
I've done various. I've been to houses, I've been to soft play areas, I've been to hospitals. And some of them are a right good laugh, but some of them are particularly sad. I was in Aberdeen on Christmas Day, dressed as Santa for all the kids that can't go home. Mm-hmm. So I rock up with their presents first thing in the morning, so it's good for them. And sometimes it's a laugh. There was one time I was through in Balerno, I think it was, and I'm sitting in my Santa throne, and it was a boy and a girl, and I'd done the usual, you kept your room tidy, have you done the dishes, all that kind of stuff, and they'd agreed, they'd been great. I said to the wee girl first, I said, "What would you like for Christmas?" The usual, unicorns, all that kind of stuff. But I said to the wee boy, I says, "What would you like for Christmas?" And without a bat in an eyelid, he looked me straight in the face, he said, "I would like new parents, please," right? So at that point I started lolling, fell off the throne I was sitting on, broke out of the chair, and I was lying on the ground laughing my head off. Then I noticed the wee lassie was crying, right? And I'm like, "Oh my God, she thinks Santa's going to get her new parents." So I had to get myself together, sit up, And the dad explained that he'd had a bit of an argument with his son on the way into the show. I said, oh, no, that's fine, that's okay. I was laughing at something else. You'll be getting the same parents. But the poor wee lassie was upset while his boy wanted to get new parents.
Ah, that's funny.
Oh, there's been a couple of belters. What was the other one? There was another cracker. It'll come back to me. Aye. There's been some funny Santa things. Some sad things as well. Kids that are not very well and things like that. There was one time. Usually you can tell brothers and sisters or brothers and brothers because there's a family resemblance or they've got the same gear and all that kind of stuff on. But there was this time there was 3 wee boys and they were completely different. And I said, so what's the relationship between you 3 wee boys? Are you cousins? They were like, no, we stay in the same home. There was 3 wee boys in a home at Christmas and I'm greeting going like, oh, it's a bit windy in here. So I took a wee bit. I usually take too long to talk to them. You're supposed to talk to them like for 30 seconds. There was one time I turned up at a school and they'd obviously had a hard time in the school to do. It was primary 1 and 2. And the deputy head teacher said to me, don't speak to them, just give them their presents, shake their hand and tell them to move on. So I'm like, well, the Christmas spirit's alive and kicking in this school. So, of course, I ignored the deputy head teacher and I talked to all the kids. And the moths were all sitting on my knee and all that kind of stuff. And it took ages to get through them. But the deputy head teacher, she was in tears at the end of it. Oh, that was magic, that was magic. Can you come back next year? So the Christmas spirit was brought back into her life, Paul. But probably one of the best ones was there was a parent brought his son along, a guy, and he'd seen me do comedy. So the wee boy's sitting like this talking to me, and but the dad had been trying to take the piss out of Santa, right in front of his son. Right, so of course Santa can't react badly. Santa's got to sit there and take it. So blah blah blah, taking the piss out of Santa. So I spoke to the wee boy, usual stuff. So what would you like for Christmas? So he gave me quite a comprehensive list. So he come to the end of his list and I went like that. You sure that's all you want? You don't want a PlayStation or something? The dad's behind him going like that. No. But it was too late now, I was in control. I said, I can get you a PlayStation as well. And the dad's like that. That'll teach you to mess with Santa, mate. So,
it's funny.
Aye.
What about, like, obviously it's been a while since I went to see Santa myself, but when you would go, I think you would always kind of play with the beard and you would be thinking, obviously, is this the fucking real Santa when you believed in it? So
Aye.
It must be, you must get less of that because obviously your beard, that's no a fake one you've got there.
It's quite astonishing because I do a school for special needs kids and they're quite tactile and they want to touch it, feel it, hear it, pull it, just as their sensory experiences. So I'm quite happy with that, no problem. And parents will say, he was brilliant, he let my son, touch him. Because a lot of Santas are quite distant and all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, the kids don't touch me. They don't touch the beard, they just accept it as real. And because it's a real beard, they think I am the real Santa. Sometimes parents pull it, right? But never the run-of-the-mill kids. It's just the kids with special needs that want to touch it for different reasons. Sometimes they can be quite strong.
I was thinking that when you were describing it there.
Some of them, if they get a hold of it and pull, but they're just being them, so you can't get angry at kids just being themselves. Because it's so bushy and I don't know if you know, this is an interesting fact, that the diameter of a beard here is 3 times the diameter of a head here, right? And the only reason I know that is because I measured it with a micrometer in front of a class once, years ago. I was talking about using a micrometer. Do you know what a micrometer is, Paul?
No,
right. A micrometer is a tool that measures fine thicknesses. So I said to the kids, well, let's just measure a couple of things, right? So you can measure the thickness of a bit of paper, right? So I pulled a hair out of my head and I pulled a hair out of my beard, right, to measure the thickness. And the kids were like, oh, no, what you need, sir? They thought it was clatty. I thought it was brilliant, measuring the thickness of hair. So that's where I learned the difference.
I'm surprised somebody wasn't offering up their pubes for this experiment.
Well, the standard British boy here.
We could have finally settled that debate. It sounds quite taxing. It sounds like it's quite emotional for you, the Santa work. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes I go to houses to do it. And you get briefed by the parents on what's going on in the house, and you get everything. Some houses are turned up and everybody's in the same pyjamas. The grannies, the moms, the dads, everybody's there. But it can be emotional. Sometimes I leave the house in tears. But you've left with them. If you pull yourself together and go to the next place, quite often it is an emotionally draining thing, because you've got to kind of keep the facade of Santa up. You know, if somebody's messing about, you can't go crack. Right, you've got to go, no, that's not nice. You need to behave yourself, otherwise you need to be sleeping before I come to your house. And really wanted to attach to them. Right, so you're getting nothing, you're a monster. But it can be. But it's overall it's great fun, because the belief in the kids' eyes is incredible, especially with the real beard. That really seals the deal for them.
What is it like that makes it emotional? Is it maybe when they're asking for something kind of minuscule, or?
No, I think it takes me back to a more innocent time. When I was a kid, I see the innocence of their lives. You know, the complications of my life now after 65 years of being here, or the mistakes I've made, or the things I've done along the road. Whereas they've got the whole life ahead of them, the excitement, the innocence that's evident in their eyes. That's what it was. That primary school where the deputy head teacher said, "Don't talk to them." I mean, there was no emotions there. It was just dead. But then when I ignored it and talked to them, yeah, it brought her to life. So there's a special atmosphere, if you want. Of course, there is at Christmas. But when you see the kids' faces, seeing Santa, you're part of their innocent reality. So it is. It's great fun, though. It's great fun, but there is a responsibility that I take seriously. You know, other things I can be mischievous, but because I get Santa every day of the year, it doesn't matter what day of the year. I mean, when we go back to the slate out of the car across the road there, somebody will shout, "Santa, can I get a bike?" It doesn't really matter what day of the year it is. I mean, is it August, right? July? Because sun could be shining if we ever saw the sun again. Somebody will shout it out, right? And people, you can see people walking along the road. It's dead funny, Paul. When you're walking along the road, you can see somebody. And it's interesting because some people associate you with Santa instantly, and others just look, there's an old guy with a beard, right? But they don't associate it with Santa. But you can see them going like that. And they nudge each other, and then they turn round and go, "Oh, I see what you mean," right? And then they catch your eye, and then they start apologising, right? Because they've been caught looking at you because somebody said they're Santa, and it's all kind of complicated. And I mean, people that I've been with, particularly when I used to take kids to play at other schools at football, we would go to another school, and the other school would go, "Oh, that guy looks like Santa." And the kids from my school, they don't see me as Santa, they just see me as Mr. Mackie, right? Because they've grown up with it. And they would get dead defensive, they would get dead hostile towards these kids. And I'm like, no, it's okay, they're just trying to be funny, right? And I always just take it as, if somebody shouts out in the street when we go out here, "Oh, Santa," right? They're not trying to be aggressive, it's just a bit of light-hearted Glasgow banter. And there's never been, I don't think there's ever been an occasion when I could say somebody's aggressively said, "Oh, you look like Santa, I want to batter you." It's always just good-humoured, and I kind of give you my Christmas list. I know it's August, and it's just stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, and people, they always think they're original, right? They might even be the fourth person that day, but they think they're original. And good luck to them. You know, they're trying to bring a bit of levity or a bit of humour into the world, and 100% back that. You know, they have to be able to take my response, but when it's Santa responses, I just go, "Ho, ho, ho, well done," and just play along with it. You know, there's never any aggression. You know, if you were walking down the wrong street with the wrong colour strip on, somebody would be going, "Oh, mate, I'm going to batter you because you don't look the same as me." But it doesn't matter where you are, by and large, if you're looking like Santa, people are just having a laugh.
Do you ever get, like, when it is close to Christmas, Wayne's fucking like pulling on your coat or whatever in Tesco and sort of saying, "You the real Santa," and all that carry on?
I get them, they're in their shopping trolley and I'm pushing my shopping trolley, and they're going, you can see the shock in their face. And I have occasionally, do you know, this was, I can't remember what year it was, either 20 or 21. And remember we were getting inoculated against that fictitious COVID that was going around the place. And they'd sent me to not the RAH, the Lagoon in Paisley. Right? And when I arrived to get my Jags, there was a queue 150 yards long, and I had to go and play Santa in Linwood that night. I thought, I'm not going in, I'm going to play Santa. So I went to play Santa in Linwood, and I'd done a couple of other things. And when I was driving home, I still had my Santa suit on. I thought, I'll just go in and see if it's busy. Right? But this time there's nobody in the queue. There isn't a queue. Saga's in, the bouncers are standing there. And you can see their faces going, what's going on? Santa's coming for inoculation. And when I went into the hall, it was a huge, big, massive hall, maybe about 100 nurses sitting at 100 desks with all these injections to go. Right? And they're like that, right? You have to go to that woman there, right? And she said, oh, I'm not allowed to take pictures in here. There's any chance of me taking a picture of you? Right? So I've got my arm out with my Santa suit on, and the whole place was in an uproar, just doggone, that kind of stuff. And I ended up going to her house. 3 years in a row, I think, I've been to see her boy. Because she said, what are you doing dressed as this? Is this a fantasy? I said, no, I'm out trying to make people's Christmas a wee bit brighter. And she said, oh, my son would love that, because our son was only about 5 at the time. I said, I'll come round to your house, no problem. So she stayed up in Dyke Bar in Paisley. So I've been the last 3 years to the woman's house.
There you go. I was actually thinking earlier, I should have really had you round to see the Wayne. I wasn't even remembering the resemblance, to be honest. It's weird.
I was up in Aberdeen one time. It's a wee while ago now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, before the trouble with the COVID. And one of the comics, Scott Forbes, his kids were young. And I said, well, I'll maybe pop in the way down the road. So it was a maybe's aye, maybe's no. So I get dressed, and it's hilarious getting dressed a Sunday morning in the middle of Aberdeenshire, getting the stuff on. And I knew where he stayed. So I just went round to his house, and they're all just all lying like that, because the kids were dead young. Chapped in the door, Scott opened the door, and he's like, look, who's here? Pure riot, first thing on a Sunday morning. Wee cup of tea, a wee blather to them, and then away down the road. So, it's good fun.
I know, it sounds nice.
Aye.
You mentioned the COVID there. I've not had much conspiracy chat on this yet, Graham. So, what's your opinion?
My take on it?
Aye.
I don't know, Paul. I think that there was definitely an issue. There's no two ways about it. But the catastrophic financial effect that it's had on the country, I think we could maybe have handled it a bit better. The average age, as far as I know, the average age for a COVID death is like 82 or 83, which is older than the average age for a death in a country anyway. And I'm convinced more than ever that people, certainly of your age, should just have went about your daily duties. Right? You got it, you didn't, you recovered, you had a bad... I mean, I got it aged 62, I think it was. 62 when I got it. I got it playing Santa, and it hit me on Christmas Day at 10:30. Everything was fine up to 10:30, and then I just went to bits, exhausted, went to bed. Couldn't get out of my bed for about 4 days, and then I got out on the 5th morning, soaked. I felt as if somebody tipped a bath over me, just to sweat. Everything was soaking. And then I started to recover. So it was the locking everybody away, the kids couldn't get to school, they couldn't develop socially, the industry collapsed, didn't collapse, but it certainly suffered. I just think you had to react somehow, and I think maybe the reaction was the wrong one.
I agree. So I didn't take the vaccine.
Right.
And I know that I don't have a huge conspiracy about the vaccine. Like, I don't think they were deliberately putting, dangerous vaccines into people. Right. But I definitely think that the testing obviously wouldn't have been as intensive as it normally would be. And I was kind of the opinion that I was young enough to fight it off, basically. Right. So I actually went out in Glasgow one night, and I was chatting up some bird, the usual. And I was ended up winching it, and she'd sort of said, oh, she'd just had COVID, and I'm like, you definitely better not have it, like the new kit. No, I'm fine. And then sure enough, a few days later, I sort of tested positive. Right. So there was no sense in me getting the vaccine after that. I was like, well, that's me. I was horrible. Like, I did have like a fever and, like you're saying, sweating and all the rest of it, but after a few days you recover, and that is what it is. But the response pisses me off now, like looking back on it, because I did for 3 months. I wasn't really doing much, didn't go and see my mum and dad and that sort of stuff. And then obviously with everything that's transpired and all the parties at Westminster and all the rest of it, you do kind of think, we've been done here.
Well, that's right. We weren't allowed to do anything. I mean, they terrorised me. Right? I was staying out in the farm at that point and saw nobody. Right? I'd bought, by pure chance, a 28-pack of toilet roll just before the pandemic because I had plenty of space in the place. I always bought them 28-pack at a time, and I didn't need to go mental trying to buy toilet roll. But
that's a lie. I know you're a well-known hoarder, Santa.
I've got the elves to make me more stuff, right? But I mean, I remember my first shopping online, and I felt as like I seen out a horror movie, that if I went outside the house, I might catch a virus and die just by breathing in the air of the world. And I went down, other supermarkets are available, but I went to Tesco at Silverburn, and I arrived there, right, masks, gloves, the whole lot, hooded claw. And I went out and the guy says, "What's your name, mate?" Told him. He's got a list there with a clipboard. He says, "No, mate, your name's not on the list." I'm like, "You're kidding," because I've done it online and I was the first there, 6 o'clock in the morning. And he looked up, he says, "It's next Saturday." I was 7 days early for my shop, right? So I went way back, hid in the house again, went back down. And it was the same guy. When I turned up 7 days later, he's like to his mate, "That's a fanny that turned up last week." And I was so terrified. I took the shopping and I threw it in the back of the motor and I drove away as fast as I could. And then, you find out that they're having parties, and Johnston didn't even know he was at a party, didn't recognise what a party was, and I think...
A load of shite.
Aye.
The rules as well at the time, it was after 10 o'clock, you had to show proof that you had a fucking vaccine. But before 10, it was fine. Aye. Coronavirus never came out before 10, so I was one of the ones. I was getting fucking fake barcodes and all that sent from my pals that had them, and because you needed it to get into places, which was it's an absolute farce, obviously, looking back at it.
Aye, you could book a pub for an hour and a half.
Aye.
Book a table.
And queuing to get into supermarkets, I know.
Aye. I went to a concert as it was all clearing up, and my pal picked me up and said, "If you get your COVID test," I'm like, "What do you mean if I get my COVID test?" "No, you need to have proof that you've had a COVID test to get in." I said, "Well, I've not got one." He said, "Well, just do one now." I said, "Well, what's that going to do? I've got a COVID test in my hand. I can just say, there's my COVID test." "No, you need to phone in the results or text in the results." So anyway, I don't know if you remember this, Bish. I text the result of my COVID test to a number, and it sent me back a test to say, "You've tested negative for COVID." Right, and that was it, proof to get into this concert. And the COVID test, I could just have dipped it in water or dipped it in nothing and text them in to say it was a farce. And we're all go, "Ooh." So, I mean, it was bad for people. I would have shielded and held, I would have hidden away the vulnerable people all day long. But, you didn't have the vaccine and nothing affected my kids. None of the three of them took the vaccine. Didn't affect them either. So it's easy looking back, but I think the wrong person was in charge of the country at the time, Mr. Buffoon. So looking to him for leadership was the wrong thing.
A lot of the stuff was devolved though, and the Scottish government were just kind of following on. They didn't want to be too radical, I don't think, in terms of doing stuff differently.
I remember the daily pronouncements on the radio, and Janie ripping the arse out it the whole time. That was the best bit of Janie's voiceovers. They just wanted to outdo each other and say, "No, we're more concerned about our nation, and so are we. But we've got a camper van that we shouldn't really have bought it, but it'll keep us clear of any criminal activity, whatever." I don't know. They're having an inquiry. Right? By the time the inquiry's done, you'll be retired, and they'll go, "Oh, he made a mistake, but he's been dead for 40 years, doesn't matter."
That's the thing that I would be concerned about is like the lessons learned. Like if this happened again and they said, "Oh, we need to lock you down again," would folk comply, or I would like to think that more folk would be sort of question it, because like you're saying, the data was it was older people, but they weren't sort of publicising that at the start. They were just saying there was X amount of deaths, and it was all like draconian and weird, and even the whole debate about if you didn't take the vaccine, you were some fucking sort of tinfoil hat mental person, and you know, folk who were taking it, there was like this the divide between people, and it was like it's your own body, your own decision in terms of what you want to do.
Aye.
And it wasn't respected, I don't think, by a lot of people.
No, it was. I actually know somebody that died the day they took the vaccine. 28-year-old took the vaccine and died that night. Now, statistically, it's going to happen. I mean, you could go and get a jag to get a tooth drilled and die of that anaesthetic. You don't know till you take it. And statistically, 99.999% of the population can take a jag, but there'll be somebody who'll die just getting a tooth out. But I don't know. They know, Paul, that every 100 years or so this crap comes round. Because who was it? Was it Bush? George W. Bush. He was trying to make America aware of it. He'd read some book about the Spanish flu and then other things in the past. And the British government did a trial or a test years before it, but not that many years before it. And the result of the test, was it Sigma? I can't remember the name of the test they did. Anyway, they ran a trial and it said categorically, you're not prepared for this. So they just buried it. So that's fine, we'll deal with that later. Just buried it. And they didn't have the masks. They didn't have the ventilators. They didn't have the things that the test said you need. This is coming round every 100 years or so. So they know there will be another one in 100 years, but God knows where we'll be in 100 years. Well, we'll be dead and buried.
I'm sure Michelle Mone will have bras for masks or whatever the fuck she was doing.
She'll have a contract to supply whatever it is you need at that point.
She'll still be making money anyway, that's for sure.
Well, there's a few of them like that. There was a few of them. There was a cracking article. This has obviously happened in a pub. I think it was either Middle England or Wales. Guys are blethering in the pub. And at the time when they were getting out money for anything, that one of them had said, if you've got a zoo, a private zoo, you get money to keep your animals alive. So I read something that was 11 guys in the same pub claimed for having a private zoo so they could get money. Because they were just going rubber stamp, right? Aye, zoo, no problem, that's it. Where we go? Aye. You're climbing Mount Everest, it'll be clear up there. On you go, £1 million, aye. Michelle Mone, double stamp that, out you get. And I mean, was it Matt Hancock gave the manager of the pub that he drinks in a £100 million contract to do stuff he'd never done before? Aye, so... they complain about people at the bottom trying to rip off their income support and all that, but these guys are ripping the country off for billions. Nobody's bothered their ass about that.
Aye, absolutely. You mentioned a couple of times there the farm, Graham, so I'm interested about that. So you were like a city boy, I think, you were up Govan, right?
Govan, yep.
And then, so what inspired the farm purchase? Can we go into that?
Aye. It was somebody else in the family was looking at buying it, but they decided not to buy it. And we went along just to have a wee look at it, to see what it was like. And I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. That was it. It was a complete spur of the moment thing. Because there was no, weren't even looking for a house. It was the other couple were looking for a house for their family to move, but they decided it was too far out of the city. It was just outside Nielsen. So it was like 2 miles from the train station. So they had been looking for different houses. They eventually ended up staying in Barhead, but that was all. It was just it wasn't even remotely in the plans.
It's an impromptu kind of thing.
Completely.
Was it a working farm? Like, were you farming the land?
No, what it was it was a chap who owned, let's call it the farm, right? Farmhouse and barns attached and all that kind of stuff. And he'd worked his whole life on it, and his kids didn't want to do it. So they subdivided it into 3 bits. The farmhouse and the barn was divided into 2. So I stayed in a half of the barn. The previous people that had owned it before me, they'd done it up. So it was, the farmhouse was a 2-storey dwelling, and the rest was just a barn conversion. That was phenomenal. It was brilliant. It was great for COVID, because you weren't in the city, there was nobody near you. There was 2 neighbours, that was it. I had, at the peak of it, I had chickens, ducks, turkeys. They're psychopaths. Never turn your back on a turkey. We had sheep, goats, and cows, Highland cows. I didn't own the Highland cows. The rest were all pets. But there was so much land. There was 3.5 acres of grass, and the farmer just across the road, Callum, he was kind of like a working farmer, more a hobby farmer, and he had pigs and sheep and he had cows in various fields. So he brought up these baby Highland cows and asked if it was okay to put them in the field, because there was too much grass for mine to keep the grass down. I said, aye, on you go. And had a deal going with a baker someplace, and he would bring up black bin bags full of loaves to feed the cows to make them grow faster. But it could be sultana bread, it could be fruit bread, it could be cakes, it could be anything. And when they were baby cows, I would give them a slice at a time, but when they got bigger, I could get them a whole loaf and they would just munch away at it. Aye. And they're all coming up on my Facebook memories at the moment. So every day I go on and there's just me. Because what I used to do was, there was a chicken coop with, there was about 6 chickens in it. They had a big room, maybe about 10 metres square with a kind of roof on it. So it was just nets. It wasn't a solid house or anything, that kind of thing. But the fox would sometimes kill everybody. So I let them out when I could sit and watch them, right? And then I could let them out. They would always go back to their bed. So if I let them out at maybe an hour before dark, they would go out into the field and I could keep an eye on them. And then when it started to get dark, they just gravitated back to their bed and I would shut them in. But what I evolved into this situation where I'd go out and collect the eggs in the morning, but people were watching live because they were all stuck in their houses all over the country. And Sid up in Aberdeen, he would watch it with his boys in the morning, and they would have a game of how many eggs is going to be in this thing each day. And people would send me messages, even after it, they were saying, Graham, that was a godsend to see that live out in the country and everything. And I was doing it to what I thought was maybe 2 or 3 people that would say, oh, morning, Graham, how you doing? But there was loads of other people that didn't show up as watching it, but later on have said to me, oh no, that was great the way you did it. So I would go out and open up the lid and see what I had to deal with. And there was one time, as a joke, I went out before the cameras were rolling and I put a golf ball in. And I opened it, was, oh, look, something's happened here. So they were great, but with a pet magpie once as well. What happened was, somebody that I know had cut down a tree unknowing there was a bird's nest in it. So there was one wee tiny baby magpie, maybe about 3 inches, 75 millimetres long. And he said, could you look after that? Just because I stayed in the farm as if I was like Dr. Doolittle. I'm like, aye, come on, baby magpie, you come home with me. And it turns out, believe it or not, magpies, like cats, only eat meat, right? Dogs will eat vegetables as well if you get them, but cat food is just meat. Right? So the internet told me all this stuff. So I had to buy cat food and wee tiny bits, feed the magpie, feed the magpie, feed the magpie. Eventually grew into a full-scale magpie. Right? So my son taught it to fly because of a barn as well. Like, it would just follow you about. Right?
What, was you just fucking doing that all the time, isn't he?
He's like, come on, pick up his feet, get up. So the magpie learned to fly in the barn, and then we took it outside and it would fly, but it'd always come back. And then one night I came back from work and it was away. So I just assumed it had met Mr. Magpie and off it went.
Oh, it was a female then?
Oh, well, I'm just saying that. It may have been a man, I don't know. I never examined it.
Could have been one of the gay magpies, maybe.
It could be. Who knows nowadays? It's possible.
Though that's interesting. Do you think, was there, see when you were taking the eggs and eating your own food and all that and growing your own food, or presumably you were doing all that as well, did you notice difference to your weight, or do you think you were happier? The folk who produce their own food, do you think it does something psychologically? I think, the fact that you're producing it yourself, because at one point I was making so many eggs, I was giving them away to people. The bin men would come to collect the bins. So I would
I would speak to them. Excuse me, Mr. Bin Man, could they weren't too close in case I killed them? And they were quite happy to take the eggs, and the next door neighbour. And people were saying, oh, these are brilliant, because the eggs that you get in Tesco and places like that, they're all identical. Every single one of them's the same. But because these chickens got a wee chance to eat worms and things, they quite like worms. They get to the grass and pick away at the place. They were all slight variations in the colour, things like that. So it was good, but too many eggs. I gave most of them away. And you learn things because you could buy empty egg boxes online, 250 egg boxes at a time, and they're dead cheap. It's only like 1.5 pence for a wee egg box. So I gave them to, latterly people in the work, but anybody, the bin men, because at that point, the only people I would see was bin men. They were the only people who came in the house. I must have had food from other places. I can't remember exactly how I got food, but I obviously had eggs. Right? I must have had tins or stuff like that. But I never went anywhere to get anything.
You grown veg and tatties and anything?
No, it was never like that. No, it was, no.
No, because I had bought a house a couple of years ago, my last house, and it had like a wee raised beds in it.
Aye.
And that was one of the reasons I bought it, because I've always kind of fancied it. And then see, once the tatties actually like sprung, whatever, once the crop was it, see, the tatties were the best fucking tatties I've ever had in my life. So I would encourage anybody that's out there, like, grow your own food. Like, there's something quite spiritual about it, I think.
Aye. Well, you've put the effort in to do it, and you can grow wee carrots and things like that just anywhere. I've got a pal that stays up in Shawlands, it's just a wee back garden, and it's like an oasis of things that are getting created. And I grew tomatoes. I forgot about that. I grew tomatoes inside. I did tomato watch as well. Live tomato watch. And I filled a swimming pool. I got a swimming pool delivered. These best away ones, right? And it was like 12 feet in diameter. But the water pressure was so poor, it took like 3 days to fill it. Right? And I only bought it to go in it once. It was only like 40 quid or something. So
Mrs. Claus wanted this, was it?
She wanted me to get a wash. So I would go out with the phone and do watching the swimming pool fill live, but it was boring as hell. It was like watching paint dry, literally. And then I filled it, and I went to go in it one day. It was frozen, so I just never went back, but it turned green. So I ended up having to stab it and let it all run away. I'd forgotten about that. No, it would have been... There wasn't any fruit and veg grown in the place. It had a wee pond as well, and there was a duck. Now, the duck that I had, Jemina, was huge. She couldn't fly, but there was a passing duck stayed in the pond at one point, and got Jemima pregnant. And she was laying eggs like mad. I went down, I put a dog kennel right to the edge of the pond, and she'd made a nest in it. And there was like 13 eggs in it. But a fox came in and killed everybody again.
For fuck's sake.
Just the way, they kill everything that moves when they get a chance. It's just their nature. I think the plan is they'll come back and get it later. So they just kill everything they get their hands on. And they don't see many foxes out in the country. They're all Sucky Hall Street.
Aye, there's a few in Knightswood anyway.
Aye. Oh, there's plenty in the city now. I mean, I think you'd probably say foxes are not country dwellers, or city dwellers.
Aye. I had never seen a fox before I came to Glasgow.
Aye.
And my mate, they were staying up in Toonhead actually. And I walked outside and I fucking shat myself because I'd never seen one before. So I thought they were like dangerous, you know what I mean? But obviously, see what the time now, it just doesn't.
People are domesticating them. People are feeding them.
Aye.
Out their back gardens. So the fox will probably have a wee run. Going on number 48, so at 7 o'clock. I go down there and get my tea. I get my supper at number 52.
I don't understand that mentality right enough about why folk like to feed them, because there's obviously enough food for them to sort of scavenge anyway. But anyway, you mentioned your showbiz earlier there, Graham, when you were getting into Limmy. So have you auditioned for anything else, or you get a desire to do more acting? What's the story?
No, I'm not a particularly ambitious person. I just kind of float through life. People keep saying it's a 5-year plan. And I'm like, well, hopefully to be alive, Same as my 5-minute plan, get to another 5 minutes. No, I did Scotch God as well. Played Santa in that. That was just somebody else who said, but I know a guy who looks like Santa. So no, I'm not really very ambitious like that. I did the festival last year. We were talking about that earlier on, but I set fire to the house when I was a boy. And it's kind of left me with a delicate throat. If I talk too much, it starts to get sore. What happened was I'd been out, obviously drinking, came home, and the classic Glaswegian, I'll just put something on the frying pan, I'll be fine. I woke up, I don't know when I woke up, but you couldn't see the house. It was completely full with smoke. I opened the windows, took the thing. I suspect it might have been steak at some point, but it was carbon now. Took it off, opened the windows, opened the door, went out, let the smoke disappear, and then just went back to my bed. I woke up in the morning, I couldn't breathe. Ended up in the hospital. Gave me maybe pump things, and ever since then, if I talk too long, it just starts to hurt. So the going to the Fringe last year was too much for it. I did 8 days or something, or 10 days. But by the end of that, I virtually couldn't talk. And that was only 8 days, 2 shows a day. And the shows were only, maybe my part would be 20 minutes or so, plus all the flyer. And so I would be talking non-stop for maybe the best part of 3 hours. But I can feel it already. Even during this conversation, start to get a wee tickle at the back of the throat. And I've had all sorts of investigations and just say there's nothing there. But I actually had speech therapy at one point because I speak too far into my breath. If you keep talking when your lungs are empty, you can squeeze out a last word or two. But the result of that is it tightens up your vocal cords, and that really hurts. And in conversation with a speech therapist, he says you're doing it all the time. And when you're on stage, you're desperate to get to where you want to take a breath. And often I was going too far. And I've tried, and that was maybe 10 years ago I got that speech therapy. I've tried to slow down. I've tried to accept silences. And I've tried to breathe at an appropriate time. Because often, I don't want to give you an example because I'll just end up hurting myself. But if you talk, you can get right to the end and you can push air out and it just hurts you. And you're hurting things that, in my case, already were hurt by the fire. I think the damage has been done way back then, so it's easy to damage it. But if I was to shout, I would have a sore throat for days. I don't shout.
I've never seen you shouting actually.
No.
Peculiar kind of career choice then, maybe, Graham.
I know.
Knowing that you're a glutton for punishment.
Aye. I know. Things have just happened to me throughout my life. As I said, there's never been a plan. Never.
What about, obviously, with you being on the scene for so long, Graham, like, you'll have seen all the folks sort of coming and going.
Oh, aye.
Like, I'm interested to hear about that. Like, who did you see, like, early on and know whether that person's got, or who do you think is, like, a superstar? Maybe mean folk who are on the telly. Can you tell us some folk?
Well, Susie has always been, Susie McCabe, she's been brilliant from the word go. Her background made her resilient. She started at the bottom, like we all did, open spots, and has risen to selling at the King's Theatre. Susie's a brilliant example of it. I remember Mark Jennings also sold out the King's Theatre. We used to run a gong show in the State Bar, and Mark wouldn't even get 5 minutes. Right? When he make 5 minutes, be gonged off at 3 minutes. But to his credit, he'd come back the next time. He'd get 3 minutes and 30 seconds, 4 minutes. And he worked his way up. Mark was determined to succeed right from the word go. And he has done great. He's doing brilliantly. Christopher MacArthur Boyd, he's ready for stardom as well. That's 3 off the top of my head.
But maybe older, like back in the day, like sort of you would have seen probably, like Ken Bridges would have started when you were already gigging, you must have seen him on the circuit, people like that.
I gigged with Kevin and Paisley, I don't know how many years ago, it would be a long time ago, and I drove him back from the Fringe. He was doing 800-seater venues, and I drove him back to drop him off at his mum and dad's house in Clydebank, because his show had finished so late and he was struggling to get back home. Kevin was at Susie's wedding not that long ago. He was a bit tiddly, but it was in good form. I saw Kevin a meteoric rise all the way to the top. I remember when we started, we did a wee course, and Frankie was one of the tutors at the course. Of course, he's at the top of the game. The one that I really feel that should be at the top, well, probably is in the top in my head, Raymond Mearns. I've known Raymond from the very start. Told me all those years ago, no, he wears shorts on stage. Maybe he'll take you seriously.
Glad to see you took his advice there, Graham.
Well, as you can see, Raymond, we're not on stage.
I'm glad you put the shorts back on. You had them off fucking when we started this.
They're still drying. And sadly, there's a few passed away. Reg Anderson, probably one of the most classic comedy stories involves Reg. He was doing a gig in Leith, and there was a wee bit of to and fro with a heckler, and Reg maybe spoken back to the heckler. Anyway, one thing bothered another, and the heckler went away and got a Molotov cocktail and firebombed the pub. Right. And consequently he got caught and he got to jail. I think that's probably the pinnacle of heckling. Although Quentin Reynolds, who's no longer doing comedy, he got a lavy pan thrown at him in Fort William. And it wasn't a lavy pan from the lavy. Right? So the person that threw the lavy pan had a lavy pan with him at the venue. Now, I presume he had it in his works van or something, but he actually threw a lavy pan at Quentin for something Quentin had said.
Presume the gig went down the toilet after
No,
that?
I was right in the pan. They had to get the police to escort them out of the place. There's been a few.
It's quite a heavy object, a toilet, I would have said.
I know. Thankfully, I missed them. The guy's aim, like mine when I'm doing the toilet, wasn't all that good. Flying by him. So Quentin's away, and sadly, the Reg, he passed away. He got misdiagnosed through COVID. Diagnosed over the phone. They said he had gallstones, which turned out to be a liver cancer. And by the time they found out the real story, he had a fortnight ago. Patrick Rowling and I went through to see him. We thought we were going to take him out for his lunch. We ended up just having sandwiches in the house. We ended up putting him to his bed, and Raymond went to see him the following Sunday. And he died on the Monday in the hospice. But he was very reticent about it. He didn't feel bad. Reg had what a life he did. As a young boy, he made what he thought was a firework turned out to be more of an explosive, and he blew out all the windows in the city chambers in Newcastle. He got any bother. I don't know if he was 15 or something. He'd taken a lot of fireworks, put them together. He was just being mischievous. He wasn't being a terrorist or anything. But anyway, he got any bit of bother, so he moved up to Scotland after that. And sadly, we had to bury Stu Hu, probably the master of comedy in Scotland, whose face is now the face of the Comedy Forum. So every time you open up, you see Stu's face there. And he had a terrible battle. Crohn's, cancer, you name it, for years. And was still churning out help for people, left, right and centre. But he only made it 74. Reg was 72, I think Reg was. Now Chris Broomfield, don't know if you know Chris Broomfield, not very well. If you're listening to this, Chris, I'll maybe come out and see you soon. Chris and I have occasional coffees and reminisce about the State Bar. We used to have a good laugh doing the Gong Show, because Chris would be the timer. He'd do the timing and he would do the watching for the cards, but often he would forget to reset the timer, Right, so people were going on and on, and we would forget to do that kind of thing. I remember one night, I've known Chris for years, he used to babysit my kids, and I'm thanking him at the end of the night, thanks to the bar staff, thanks to all the acts, blah, blah, blah. And I looked over at Chris, and I said, a big round of applause for, and I completely forgot his name. Right, it's like forgetting your own name. My good friend over there, right? And I was like, for goodness sake. So it just shows you how you can. And I called somebody this week, Caley. I called Kirsty, Caley, and a guy called George. I called him Gregor. 2 mistakes in one night. I hate making mistakes with people's names.
Oh, I'm the same. It's reminding me because one of my best mates, he actually listens to this podcast, so he'll probably listening now. So, Tom, I was in the pub with him and I forgot to name his wee boy, unfortunately. So I'm sort of saying, how's wee Tommy getting on and that, and he's obviously raging,
Aye.
And then we were on a stag do a couple of months ago, and I fucking forgot his message. Well, I didn't forget it. I just said it was somebody else because it's somebody that sort of looks like her.
Aye.
So apologies, but it does happen. It's just a mistake, when you don't see somebody for a while, whatever. Okay. It's no disrespect meant for it, obviously.
This is a brain fart. That's all.
Aye, it happens. You mentioned obviously a few people passing away there, Graham. So obviously we're at different stages of life, I think would be fair to say.
Of course.
So I don't think people talk about like grief a lot in society. I think it's like a subject that people are maybe scared to sort of touch
no
upon.
Question. Aye. Especially men. Women are quite good at communicating with each other. Men traditionally just bottle everything up, and it's resulted in suicide is the biggest cause of death of males under 25 in this country. And I've got personal experience that Robin Williams said suicide's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And never a truer word was spoken. And people can be in dark places. And often, people say, oh, must be a great laugh living with a comic. Aye, why can't I live with one miserable bastard? Right? On stage, you're this gregarious, happy, devil may care and all that kind of stuff. And then you go into another thing and you're thinking, did that go as well as I thought? Will it be funny the next time? Or is this the last time I'm ever going to do this kind of thing? And, the people say, how are you doing? Aye, I'm fine. Right, that's the default. Nobody's ever going to say, you know what, I fucking feel terrible. This happened, that happened, the next thing happened. And maybe there's a wind of change happening, but it's slow, and it's difficult to. It's a societal thing, the man going to work, women staying in the house. I mean, that's 70 years out of date now, and the statistics are there that say men need to support each other more. But it is happening. The likes of Rob Kane, Men
United at Drumchapel.
Up in Drumchapel.
Aye.
And occasionally, I've done some gigs for them to say raise some money for them and things like that. You see so-and-so's not been seen for a few days, get in touch and all that kind of thing. And you hope that they're okay. So I don't know where the education has to come. Is it in schools? Schools, anything that goes wrong, get a school to sort it, get a school to sort it, get a school to sort it. And that's fine. I'm all for the schools sorting things. But they need the tools to sort them. If people are going to talk about situations like that, sex education still, put a condom in a banana in the school, and it's all hilarity and blah, 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 blah. They're only here because somebody had sex with somebody else and made them. Right? That's just the mechanics of it. But it's still the taboo subject of having sex with somebody else.
It's actually funny you mentioned that. Sorry to cut you off here,
No
but
problem.
I'm 37 and I don't really like condoms, right? I've never really used them a lot. And see, when it comes to putting a condom on, it's like, I don't know, still really know how to do it. I have to watch videos,
Aye.
I just found out genuinely last week that you have to, if you're no circumcised, you have to pull your foreskin back. So that is a definite problem that we don't teach this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we teach maths, English, French, geography, modern studies, woodwork, take it on, all those kind of things. They've been around for forever, and education is a real lumbering juggernaut to get things changed. And in this society now, that'll answer any question you want. Any question you want. And it'll be more accurate probably than any human being that you ask the question of. So there should really be a change, but it's just so slow to change education, Paul. It really is. That example of that horrific stabbing of those three wee girls, there was people sending me things saying, this guy did it, right? With his picture and his name, and he came off this boat and he came from that country. And it was all garbage, right? But people have been influenced by that. And there was a lot of young people involved in those riots. So they've seen something. Oh, so-and-so, such and such, I'm going out to do something. Right? You're basing it on lies.
Aye, pish, total pish.
Aye. And, you know, there should be something in school for kids to analyse something critically, to say, is this true?
Aye.
Right? Check your sources. Don't just go reacting. And I mean, I saw a deep fake of, was it Biden and Trump singing something together? And if you just looked at it, you would go, it looks as if the two of them just come out the boozer together and had a really good laugh. And it's AI's just twisting everything.
Aye. You just need to Google something now. Like you're saying, if it's somebody's name, whatever, and then you can sort of quickly find out if it's true or no, or the location, the place. It doesn't take much effort to.
Aye, but a lot of them don't take that effort. It's I was listening to a programme that said a lie's halfway around the world before the truth's got out its bed, sort of thing.
And that's quite interesting.
Aye.
They did a show about this on Channel 4 recently, and it was like they were saying they were using AI to doctor, you know, what Labour and the Tories were saying.
Aye.
And I think it was like 80% or something people changed their vote because of all this fake stuff. And it's like you're saying, TikTok's pretty bad for it. I had never been on TikTok before I started this podcast. And when I'm on that and I see some of the stuff and I think, I'm not sure about this. Like, when my son gets access to a phone, I think I'll be sort of, you know, stipulating like, TikTok's not a thing until you're sort of 16, you know, and above.
But and the phones are now, I mean, as a 9-year-old, which is probably about average when they get a smartphone now, you can see porn as a 9-year-old that you couldn't imagine as a 37-year-old. Right? Now, you put yourself back down to when you were 16, certainly when I was young, you know, they occasionally get a porn mag, it was all stuck together because somebody else had dealt with it, right? And, you know, it was an occasional, let's call it a treat, right? When you found a lucky midden, but it's something in it. But the things that these kids are exposed to now, it's normalising things that are horrific.
Aye, that's it, and it's 24/7 as well. Like you're saying, there was a boy, it was all somebody in the rigs who used to get the porn when we were younger. So one of the boys' dad worked in the rigs, and I remember it was when I just started the chugging, to be fair, and it was like this mad German porn. He gave us a Lenny, and I fucking had it for about 2 weeks. He was asking me every day for it back, and I'm like, there's something wrong with the tape recorder, though, that push. Yeah. So
and that's what it used to be like. There was a austerity about it that, you know, it would be an occasional thing. Right now, you could call up. You don't even need to be on the internet. 4G, you can do it any way you want. You can see just about anything you want. You can search for anything you want. And some of the images, I'm not approved by any manner of means, but some of the things that I've seen shown to me are horrific. And I think as a mature adult, I can't stand seeing them. Right, but the influence it would have on a kid. You know, those wee kids that were down there, there was a kid jailed the other day. His offence was he kicked a tyre in a police van and headbutted it, right? And he got to jail. Right, that's what he was doing. Now, I think if you're kicking a tyre and headbutting a police van, you should be going to the hospital, right? Maybe with a straitjacket. I don't know if they have these kind of things anymore. But what possessed I think he was either 12 or 14 or something, kicking a tyre and headbutting. He's carried away with the frenzy of it all. But the misinformation, I think, is going to be a real struggle for society to get through. You know, what's the truth?
We've done nearly an hour, so we'll wrap up soon, Graham. But one thing I did want to ask you was, obviously, you mentioned your teaching there, right? And hopefully we can finish out on a kind of positive note. So, like, you've seen, obviously, the generations changing. So, this new generation, like you're saying, they probably had access to internet, you know, since they were 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds. So do you have hope for the future when you see the kids coming through your class there at school?
Aye, there's always hope. And kids are kids, right? Kids will deal with whatever's in front of them, right? That's just, I mean, there's just been changes forever, right? We don't love a club woman and drag them into caves. Things change. The speed of change is interesting at the moment. It's faster than it's ever been. But I was teaching the other day, brand new wee first years, right out the wrapper, and it was a small class. Half of them had turned up for one reason or other. And I'm like, are you nervous? Are you excited? And there was a bit of excitement, and then there was a more nervousness, right? So they were nervous about coming to school, and I thought we'd worked years to get rid of all that nervousness just to make the transition more palatable for them and all that kind of thing. So I'm sitting and I'm just saying to them, well, I said, it was 1971 when I was in first year, right? And I said to them, so how long ago was that? One of them said, 47 years. I said, no, the arithmetic doesn't stack up. You need to do arithmetic again. So a wee bit longer than that. So I'm saying to them, you know, there's nothing to be nervous about now. That all those things that you used to hear about, the horrible things that are happening, they don't happen anymore. Kids are actually quite chilled about a lot of things. You know, there is bullying. There's not two ways about it, but it's a lot less prevalent than I remember it being, certainly. And the kids seem relatively happy. I think that being through the COVID years where they were isolated other than by communicating electronically with their pals, I think that's probably had an effect in terms of their socialisation. I've never seen so many kids that are loners. You know, occasionally you would have a kid that would be isolated or choose to isolate themselves. There's much more of that now, Paul. And there's kids who find it difficult to come back into the classroom because they've just been allowed to be on their own doing whatever they've chosen to do. One of the schools that I'm aware of, they were given homework to the kids to do through COVID, and they were giving it out at the usual 9 till 4 school day kind of thing. But the kids can access it at any point they want, and they've got tracking the data. Right? And the average time for this school to log on to do their work was 4 a.m. Right? Right? Now, the data's there. It's not as if it's somebody going, oh, I think. They've got the data for all the kids in the school, and they can track the minute they log on and the minute they log off, what they did when they were there. Did they read the work? Did they do the work? Did they send it back in again? 4 o'clock in the morning was the average time this school logged on to look at the work.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
I honestly, I'm dumbfounded by that.
Aye, but it's a fact, right? And you would be surprised, right? Because you would think maybe the parents would regulate it and blah, 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 blah. And the parents are, they're busy with their lives. They're dealing with COVID as well. The kids are maybe in the room with their laptop, maybe separate rooms with their other brothers and sisters. You're doing whatever you're doing. The best motivated kid in the world is likely to go, you just want to have a blather. You want to play a game. Because you can play, I mean, you could be playing somebody in Hong Kong at Super Mario Kart live, and you can talk to them at the same time. That's much more interesting than algebra or calculus, you know. So when everybody's falling asleep, I'll just have a wee look at the work that's online.
I was wondering, it's maybe they've went to bed and put it off, and then they woke up and get anxiety and thought, fuck, I'll need to do that.
It could be.
It's still an odd time, right?
Aye, I've taught thousands of kids over the years, thousands of them. I've taught millionaires and murderers alike, Paul. And often I see them in the street. They're 35, they're 45 now. And a lot of the time, common theme is, oh, Mr. Mackie, I wish I'd listened to you when I had the chance. Right? And I tell the kids, the young kids now, that about that experience. Because you can only get that experience as a teacher once you've been in it for a while. And you do see people. I met a boy just along in Partick. He was towing a van. He was in a van towing a truck. And I actually can't remember his name. He opened the window and he shouted out, oh, Mr. Mackie, how you doing? I said, I'm fine. So he stopped him with a wee blather. And he'd achieved nothing at school. But his driving licence, and that was what he was doing. He was toting this truck. And another prime example of, I wish I'd paid attention, And he was only 23 or 4 by the time I saw him. And I said, but there's still opportunities. School's one path that people can take. But there's plenty of other paths that you can do degrees at any point. And you can get access courses to do degrees. Right. So there's schools haven't changed that much since when I was there, since you were there. The subjects are still the same, still doing maths, 5 periods a week, every day of the week you get maths. Woodwork, still woodwork. But society's changed. The phones. I remember the calculator get introduced in 1974. My teacher, Mr. Smith in Govan High, he came in, showed us it. I think he paid 70 quid, right? And all it could do was add, subtract, multiply and divide, and it did percentages. And that was the top of the range calculator in 1974, and he'd bought one.
Couldn't they do the writing the boobies thing?
No, nothing.
Hadn't they developed yet?
We were still doing slide rules and logbooks. You don't even know what a slide ruler or a logbook is.
No.
It was a plastic ruler that slid along. It was a precursor to calculators, and logbooks were the same. Logbooks have been used since abacuses and stuff like that. Aye, but all gone. Everything's there on the phone.
What about, last question then, Graham, you're talking about stuff from back in the day. Was the cane still in operation when you were when you started teaching,
no,
or did that stop?
It got banned the day I started.
Oh, that was you that you brought it in.
1982, it started. The belt was banned in 1982 in Glasgow. It was a woman, her kid was at a private school, Glasgow Academy, I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, she took it to the European court. She didn't want her way in getting belted, so she was the one that sparked the revolution, and that was it, finished. I got belted a couple of times. Mr. Rafferty belted me, Mr. Frame belted me, Miss Cant belted me.
I don't know if they're still going to be alive. I listen to this.
Mr. Gary belted me.
Oh, they're not getting called it.
Mr. Gary belted me for dropping my pencil in the woodwork room. My pencil fell off a desk. Just a quickie, Mackie. Just a quickie. Back to work. I know a guy get belted on his left hand because he cut his finger on his right hand, and that was, it meant he used the chisel the wrong way, so he get belted in the other hand.
It's quite barbaric, obviously. I remember my uncle telling me once, it was a history teacher at our school, and I think he was a bit of a pervert, or not to be fair, the cunt. And he said, he used to belt me all the time, sort of thing. So see, when he found out I was related to him, that was me. I was fucked in his class. So.
Aye.
But he couldn't belt me, at least, so.
Aye. The belt was, it was misused, there's no question about it. As a deterrent, it probably worked. Societies is a difficult topic to discuss. The house that I grew up in, there was a guy murdered in it, right? But 4 years before I moved in, but before I was born. And it made national newspapers, right? The whole of Britain, this guy get killed in Govan. If you get killed in Partick tonight, people in Parkhead won't even hear about it. There's that many murders now.
I don't know. I think murders are still publicised, to be fair.
Aye, but they'll not make the headlines. This made national news, Paul.
This
guy getting killed in Govan.
So did you know that before you moved in? Because some folk are a bit funny about if there's like an incident like that, if it's haunted and all
My
the
mum
rest
and
of it.
dad didn't tell me. I was 14 before I found out. I was sitting down in Govan Cross, and this old woman went like, aye, that's how close there was a murder in. And I'm like, what close is that? That one there, one water row. And she says, was it? I says, whereabouts was it? That house up there, second for the top. I'm like, you're joking. Right, I was straight up the house. I said, my mum, a woman down there said there was somebody murdered in this house. I've never told you. It's my bedroom. Right, it's my bedroom. It was two gay chaps and they had a bit of a fallout, and one leather, the other one with a poker. Left them in the cupboard in my bedroom and buggered off to London. Aye. And the woman downstairs, she thought it was her cat, was stinking the place out. It was a guy upstairs decomposing. Right, so they found him, and you can find it online. Aye. But that made national news. Like, one murder made national news for the whole of the country. Right? And as I'm saying, you get killed in Parkhead, they'll not even know about it. It'll still be published. Right? It'll be published, but it might make page 3 or something, that guy get killed.
That could be your new live, Graham, just going about and publicising all these murders and taking golf balls and dressing up as Santa.
Too busy. There's too many murders for me to publicise them now. That is shocking. Right. But I mean, I don't know. Everything's evolving, you know, and it evolves at its own pace. Look at the guys going about in electric bikes. They don't stop at a red light at all. I remember getting dug up by the police in Govan for not having a light in the back of my push bike when I was a wee boy. The police stopped me in the street. You not got a light in the back of your light. Get home. Right now, the place is flooded with these people. The traffic lights just don't seem to apply to them. And going through red lights, people aren't stopping at red lights now in cars. They're going through.
Well, they've got the fucking daft detectors on them now, because I get fucking a 3 points and £100 fine for it.
Does you?
Aye, they're all Glasgow now. They're making a fortune out of them, actually. But anyway, nice to see you, mate. I really appreciate you coming in.
No
We just need
problem.
to wrap up because
Pleasure.
they're going to shut this place down. So, aye. But I would maybe get you back on again. I really enjoyed that, mate. It was a great chat and it's good to see you.